Hi everyone, welcome back again. We have this month 30 Men, 30 Days, where we highlight the stories of 30 men and their health experiences, whether it be physical or health, whether it be physical or health related. They're here to share with us, how they were able to overcome. And as you have seen, we have had some real and raw stories, and I am looking forward to this one. I kind of have a snippet of what he will talk about, but this one, I have been eagerly awaiting to hear about this story. So let me introduce you all to Edgar. Edgar, can you please tell us your name and what you do?
Okay. Thank you for having me, Eve. My name is Edgar Odhiambo, staying here in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a policy analyst by profession, and on the side, I am also a mental health advocate.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So,
Yeah,
today we're talking about
yeah.
either an experience or, a physical or health experience. Can you tell us about a time that you had either or both that really affected you to a point
Mhm.
where you felt that it took your power away?
Uh, in fact, this one, I thought about this example and I was like, let me surprise Eve with this one. It's a story I've not said publicly. So, uh, So yeah, I said, let me. I knew you were predicting something, and I was like, yeah,
I've been
that's
having a
fine. But
lot of those lately.
let me give you one experience. let me do you one over and give you something different. So how I'll explain this story is so I was in business for a long time. What I used to do is I used to run a gym for the World Bank, and then I also used to run a car hire business. Uh, for the car hire, I lease the cars to either individuals or to an individual, to a tour company, and then there's also to a clinic as well, just to ferry like the clients from one side of the clinic to the other in another. I mean, from one branch to another, depending on what services that they needed. So I think I'd gotten to the point where, like with the gym for World Bank, we were not the contract was not making sense anymore. So I opted to close the gym. And then on the hire business, what was happening, because the economy was going through a cash crunch, or the country was going through a cash crunch, so we didn't have a lot of clients spending money on hiring cars. So that could be the tour company or the individuals who are hiring the cars. There's also the hospital as well. So for both businesses, it was time for me to shut them down and figure out what I will transition to. So I shut both down, and then I came up with a plan of I wanted to get into farming. So while I was getting into the process of closing these two businesses, I had spoken to my sister, I'd spoken to my dad, and I told them about wanting to get into farming. And we went about looking for land, and eventually we found some land in Kajiado County, a place called Isinya Town. So nice Maasai family who have they had 10 acres. So we wanted to start with 5, and then we will sort of scale up from there. So we met them severally. We saw the land, we liked it, and we told them that yeah, fine, we'll take it. Let's just wait for the money to come through. So after closing the two businesses down, what happened was I had to raise capital. So we used to raise capital was one, to sell the equipment that I had at the World Bank gym, and then because the machines were mine, and then there's a car we had at home as a family that we weren't really using. So the decision was that we would sell all these assets, raise money, and I'd put it as my capital into the business. So for the gym equipment, I sold it to one of my dad's friends, and for the car, we sold it to another of my dad's friends. So these are two of his friends who are willing to take these assets away from us and pay for them. Now here comes where I answer the question. You know, the time when I either had an experience, and the experience that came thereafter was these guys didn't pay. They didn't pay. Like, for example, for the gym equipment, I got the gym equipment, they were in a go down, and I got them transported to my dad's friend's gym. And when I get there, we're taking them with a truck, offload the equipment, and the agreement was that we were selling these machines for a total of 1.9 million Kenya shillings. So the agreement was that upon delivery of the equipment, he was going to pay a sum of 600,000 Kenya shillings, and then a week later, he'd give me a post-dated check for the end of that particular month, which was January 2020, for 400,000. So that to make it a million bob. And then the 900,000 Kenya shillings was going to be paid in part over the next 6 months. So that's between February 2020 to June 2020. So I'm like, yeah, it's a good plan. You know, payment plans,
That was
they happen all
during
the
the
time in
pandemic,
business.
right?
Just before all this was happening, just before the pandemic. The pandemic was that thing that virus that is in China, and it's affecting the Chinese. And oh my God, we feel so bad for them, but we didn't remotely think it would ever come and affect the rest of the world. So COVID was the last thing at the back of my mind. Now for the car we were selling it at 2.6 million Kenya shillings, and for this particular asset, my dad is the one who was in charge of selling it to his friend. So for the gym equipment, what I did is I drafted a sale agreement prior, of which I had sent to this guy via email for him to review, and then we sign off, indicating that he was going to pay the 600,000, the 400,000, and then the 900 in part. And then on my dad's side, he was meant to give the sale agreement for the car so that we know how he was going to pay. His friend was going to pay for the car. So I was not privy to the information about that sale, but for the gym I was. So I delivered the equipment. I get a check for 600,000 the next day, and he tells me to come back after a week to get the check for 400,000. And mind you, at this time, I'm looking to transition from these businesses that I had been running for. The gym was for a year, the car hire for about 5 years. Now get into my own thing where I can farm and just grow food to something very new, but I really wanted to get into it. So anyway, I wait. The week passes. I call his PA and I go and I get a check for 400,000. So the 600K went through, and then the 400K check I got, it was supposed dated for, I think the waiting period was about 5 days, 5 working days. So after 5 working days, I go and bank the check and I wait for the next week. And then the bank calls and the bank tells me, Edgar, unfortunately, that check has bounced. So I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, please try and contact whoever, whoever gave you the check, whoever issued it, and figure out how you can rectify the situation. Otherwise, we'll charge you. So I tried getting a hold of him, and it turns out he had traveled. He had gone to Israel for something, and he was not around, and the PA is like, there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, no, but you guys, I know you usually have signed checks. Then he tells me, okay, Edgar, to be honest, we don't have money in our account. So I tell him, okay, but I wish you guys told me this when you're giving me the check for 600,000 when I was bringing the equipment to the gym, because you must have foreseen that you didn't have money in your account. It's like, yeah, that was for the boss to tell you, that's not on me. And of course, I'm pissed. And I'm wondering, what the hell am I going to do? Because this will definitely interfere with my plans. Because we had already, established contact with the Maasai family, telling them that we're going to take the piece of land and we're going to make deposits, and we're giving them timeframes and all these things. On the side for the car, I get home one day and the car is not in the parking lot. And I asked my dad, where's the car? And he's like, yeah, his friend took it. He's paid 500,000 Kenya shillings, and he's going to pay the balance of 2.1 million Kenya shillings by the end of that particular week. So in my head, I'm like, okay, it looks good. Everything looks okay. It's fine. And the week passes, 2 weeks pass, 3 weeks pass, and no money comes. The other guy on the other side with the gym equipment, waiting. He's in Israel. He comes back. He's like, oh, he's not in office yet. He's waiting to, I don't know, there's something he was busy doing in his house, he has up country. And then lockdown is announced. COVID is announced in the country, and within, I think, a week, we're in lockdown. And all hell breaks loose because COVID is here. I don't have money. I had this grand plan, and I don't know what to do. So both these two gentlemen go missing. They don't pick up calls. They don't reply WhatsApp messages. They don't reply messages. And I'm seated wondering, what am I going to do? My life seems to have come to a standstill, and I didn't like it. I was so uncomfortable. I was very, very angry. And then now began the process of trying to track these two gentlemen down. Eve would call these two guys day in, day out, morning, afternoon, evening, night, every day. And they would decide when they would feel like picking up calls. And when they do, it was always, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back when I'm done. And then they never call back until the next time you're calling back. So mind you, I'm here and I'm like, yo, I don't have any other thing that I'm doing. I don't have a corporate job. My businesses have shut down. And I'm feeling very vulnerable at this point. And now I'm asking my dad, what can we do to remedy this situation? Because we need to mitigate this situation. And we need to mitigate it ASAP. Because I don't want my life to come to a standstill because of being inconvenienced by people whose lives are going on.
Yeah.
And it was just that thing of, I promise you, we're going to handle it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then now the guy we sold the car to resurfaces for a bit. And he's like, the reason why he's not paid is because there's people who he's doing business with who have not paid him. Hence why he cannot pay us. So I told my dad, if that's the case, then get the car back. We don't need to spend the 500,000 that he's given us, because we hadn't spent it then anyway. So we can hold on to it. We hold on to the car, and he comes with the balance. And if he's not able to raise the balance, we return the 500,000 Kenya shillings, and we look for another buyer for the car. And it just became, no, don't worry, Edgar. You're in a hurry. You need to just play this out. You have to be patient. The thing about the kids, the people in your generation is that you're in a hurry. You want instant gratification. You want things to happen on your time. And yet life has challenges. Life has things that unpredictable variables that always, crop up, and you just have to deal. So, the lesson that I'm trying to teach you here as your father is that you just have to be patient, give them time. And the thing is, when I found out who the people who owe the guy who we sold the car to money, it turns out it was some county governments. And the reputation of county governments when it comes to payment, when you've done work for them, is that they don't pay you immediately. They take their time. And whether he was either paid or not paid, I have no idea. But we didn't receive any money. And on the other side, the guy for the gym equipment resurfaces saying, I'm up country. We don't have banks here. I don't have my checkbook. I can't issue any check. I can't do any transfers until I get back. We're in lockdown, so I can't even travel to Nairobi to sort you guys out. So then I sit and I'm really, really angry, because I'm looking at my dad and I'm like, why is my life stopping because of people who were not prepared? This is not their first rodeo. They've done business before. They know how business goes. So why is it that I'm paying the price for these guys? And
sorry,
it
just
began.
before you carry on, I just wanted to kind of find out, in terms of, you've mentioned being in that place where the guys, they did all these things. I'm just wondering the time that it happened to you, and I know it was, there was so much confusion in the world, and then there's COVID, there's lockdown. And you're here hearing like your livelihood
Yeah.
as a man has been stripped away from you by someone.
Yes.
I want to find out
Yes.
like what
Yeah.
was your mental and emotional state at that time? Because obviously we understand that with men, especially with when it comes to men, it's like things that the causes, some of the causes around suicide is, you know, lack of employment or if something goes wrong with their
Yeah.
business. So what was going through your mind, your emotions in that space that you were in?
Um, I was running between being very angry and being extremely hurt and feeling betrayed. The anger was with everyone. It was with the two gentlemen who owed me money, and it was also with my dad. Um, with my dad, it was because I felt like he didn't fight hard enough for me, he didn't fight hard enough to hold his friends to account.
Mm.
Now, because I didn't have the level of access he has to his friends, for me to be able to take that, you know, a mission on my own. So I always had to go through him. And now for him, he was like, I'm busy. I forgot to call. I forgot to reach out. I'll call them tomorrow. Or they were busy. I'll call them next week. Or they've traveled. There's always a story that favored the gentleman rather than favoring me. And then the times that he did track them down, rather than hold his friends to book, you know, citing that the fact that they have not paid, it's messing up things on my side. It did hurt me because I'm your son. I'm not saying go and beat these people or go on a shouting match, but hold your friends accountable, hold your friends responsible for the things that done. Acknowledge that what they've done, you know, beyond telling me that you feel for me, go and action. I wanted the presence of my dad, but he was not really doing what I needed him to do. And when I tried to tell him how to go about it, it kept being dismissed and invalidated as if I was still young and I didn't know how business is done. I didn't know how life, you know, goes. So I was very upset with him. And then I was upset with the gentleman because every time I tried to even reach out to them and speak to them, and I felt like I was even almost begging. You're begging for something that is yours. Like
Mm.
they literally have this asset and you're begging and they're just like, yeah, I understand, I know I've not been paid, so what will we do? And I'm like, that's not my problem. Is it you have to sell a car, you have to sell land, do it, give me other solutions that you're going to take up so that I'm paid. But there was no time frame about when I'm going to be paid. It's just let's wait and see. Then I'm like, okay, then you know, I told my dad, then tell them to return um the car that we have that we gave them, tell them to return the gym equipment that we sold them. And now it even got worse. The gym equipment had been sold to a third party.
Oh,
And
wow.
as it was sold to the third party, so that means I could not even retrieve this equipment. The contract that had sent this guy, he never signed it. I pleaded, I begged, I told my dad, make this man sign it. If you have to go with the contract to his house, because he had come back to Nairobi, he found some clearances and he managed to travel through the restricted access that we protocols that were there, and he managed to get back to Nairobi. And I told him, go with this contract so that if we have to, let's say, for example, take him to court, then we can do that. And he never did. He's like, no, don't antagonize him. If you antagonize him, he may not be able, he may even decide he's not going to pay. And now that will put us at a loss. And I'm like, it's our money. Why are we trying to play diplomacy with people who are not being respectful of the agreement that we entered? Because when they wanted these assets, they were so enthusiastic about wanting them and promising how they're going to pay, but they've not paid. So I was upset with these people because they just kept taking me around and it was at my inconvenience, and I didn't know what to do. I honestly felt so helpless, and every day just felt like as much as I was asking for an update from, let's say, my dad, it was more of, did you factor in any time in the day to go and do the right thing with your friends? And it was always, I was busy, I was tired, I was playing golf, I was in a meeting, they didn't pick up the one call that I made, they didn't pick up, and I'm like, okay, so did you call back? Like, no, I didn't call back, but I'll call back tomorrow. And the thing is with tomorrows always accumulate. They always accumulate.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
you realize that a month has passed, three months have passed, you find 6 months have passed. 2020 went like that. You get into 2021, and I've not been paid a dime. I'm looking at the amount of money that I'm owed, and I literally can't get it. And so many things ran through my mind. Do I drive to these people's houses and go and shout at them in their houses? I felt helpless because I could not even take them to court because I didn't have the money. At the time, our family was also going through a lot of financial trouble. So even if we decided we're going to take these guys to court, with which money? Lawyers need money. And
Everything needs money
for
during
things,
COVID.
everything needs money. Everything needed money during COVID.
And it's interesting that.
So I didn't know what to do. I was just yeah.
No, it's
okay.
really, like, I'm trying to imagine like everything, the frustration that you were going through, but not just from kind of the money going missing, but also there's someone there who's like your caregiver, or rather someone you're talking to about your frustration. And there's this sort of thing that I'm getting in terms of minimizing your frustration, which tends to happen a lot in situations where, people often don't see like what they do to us and what, in terms of minimizing. It happens a lot where someone will tell you it's not that serious, or, we can wait. They don't see that frustration in you. I'm just wondering, in terms of like the mental health aspect of it, like just around the mental health, how did that eventually affect you, going from that point, and how were you able to overcome it?
In terms of my mental health, I remember I was not in a good place with the anger, the hurt, the betrayal, and all these things. It just put me in a spell of anxiety and very low on and off periods, where now it gets to points where, like for example with my dad, because other than this particular issue, we've had our own issues as father and son. And I remember even times when I'd want to go and ask him about an update, or for an update, or to share information. I remember I used to get really anxious about it, and I was almost afraid to face him or to approach him and talk to him and share what he was going through, because of the minimizing of my feelings, the invalidation, and then the fact that he also has a temper sometimes. So I always felt like if I was to speak about my needs, it would make me almost feel like I was being too much, I was being a burden, I was complaining, suppress a lot I was feeling, and that would get me to go through a lot of anxiety, which eventually would transition into depression, and not able to sleep, or I'm oversleeping, I'm not able to eat, or I'm eating too much. I don't have the mind to interact with people, so I'd isolate quite a bit. And I went through this period for quite a while, even last year, 2021. Keep asking, and I think I kept holding on to that hope that something different would happen, but nothing did. So I think it came to a point when I was like, okay, how do I get past this situation? Because I know I need the money, but I started entertaining those thoughts of, what if these guys don't pay? Because to me, what it meant was, if they don't pay, then my life is over. Like my life will not move past that place that I was, and it was a very tough thing to sort of even think about and contemplate, because you want more for your life. You want to do more. I kept this dream and that goal and that goal, and I can't achieve it. What do you mean? I won't be able to farm. I won't be able to grow food. I won't be able to feed my people and my nation. What do you mean? And the incentive of all this is just that you make some money, yes, but it's this thing that I would have done that would have given me so much joy and pleasure. Just going and seeing something from a seed to a full grown crop, and then you harvest it and you sell it to people, and people are like, this produce is really good, it tasted really good, I prepared it, I liked it. And I was not understanding how that's going to happen. So in terms of even overcoming, when I'd share my story with friends or some friends, initially I'd get that, oh, don't worry, just keep fighting, keep trying. But I'm like, at what expense? Because it's taking more than it's giving. It's taking away more than it's giving me, and no one is there to replenish that. It's not that they have to do it, but there's no other way of replenishing what I felt like I was losing all the time. So in terms of overcoming, there's two conversations I had with two very good friends of mine, and they're like, Edgar, what if these guys don't pay? I'm just here to tell you that I don't think your life will be over. It just means, yes, maybe have to start from scratch, and it might not be your ideal situation. It might not have been what you had in plan, but it might be the only way. Number one. Number two, face the reality that probably your dad is not the guy who's going to help you out of this situation. So what next then? Because even thereafter, like, he didn't do much to stand up for me, his son, and dealing with that reality that on one end he'll tell me how I'm his son and I mean so much to him, and he'd do anything for me, but then when it came to actioning it, he did barely anything. So in terms of overcoming, it was now to just shift my mindset to either you try and go and get the truth by yourself, rather than waiting for your dad to go and do it. Go and action this thing. So I did certain things. I managed to track down the guy who we sold the car to. And it was an unorthodox way of doing it, because I tried to call him severally, he'd not pick, or he'd always say, I'll call you back, and then never call back. So anyway, I went to his wife. And I had a conversation with her, very nice, very chill. I didn't go shouting or screaming. I'm just like, hi, how are you? I mean, she knows me. She's someone that we've had countless conversations with. So it was, just me telling her that I'm in this situation and it's messed up my life. Things are not working out. And I just want to know, are you guys going to pay the money or not? So that I know how to proceed from here. I didn't go with threats or anything like that. It was just more or less to create a rapport and buy into her emotions for her to see that things on my end were not looking good. And I needed for me to progress, I needed to know whether I'm getting this money or not. So she intervened briefly, had a conversation with her husband. He reached out to me, and same old stories, but he tried just what? Sawa. Ukirudi. So like I tried to. He gave me certain stories like, oh, don't worry, I understand, but I'm also going through a tough time financially. What? Then some truths came out. Where my dad had done business with him back in the day, and my dad didn't pay. So now it made sense why he was stalling. It's not that he didn't have money. It's just that why should he pay me my money, but yet my father had not paid him his money? So then I was like, wow, I've been caught up in a web I didn't know about. So it hit home that I had to let go of that pursuit. It came with its own fair share of emotions and thoughts of, why is this always happening to me? Because the same case ended up being with the guy who I sold the gym equipment to. My dad and him did business before. He didn't pay in full. And what these two gentlemen had in common was that when my dad announced that he wanted to sell the assets, they posed as, yes, we will buy the assets, but knowing very well now they were basically recovering their money. It was a mission to recover their money without really telling me. So then dealing with that eve was hard, but I slowly just stopped asking my dad. I went to him and I went to my mom and I sat them down and I told them that I'm never going to ask you about this money ever again. But just know the cost, that the thing that it's cost me my livelihood as of now. It's cost me progression in my life as of now. It has cost me my sanity. has cost me my mental health in so many ways, and I'm never going to ask about this money again. And just know, you and your friends, you've done a thing, and this thing that you've done, I'll one day have to let go of it, which is fine, and I'll work towards that. But it definitely was going to affect how my relationship with my dad was going to be thereafter. And I had to now, in terms of overcoming, also it had to create a situation where I had to delink from my dad, because he just wasn't. My best interests were not with him. Tough realization, because that's your parent. It's not like some random friend or your colleague or your boss. It's your family, and facing that was a deep hurt that I don't even think I've ever verbalized it to my dad, to the depths of what I actually felt. But yeah, so I think it's just something I'm still healing from. And I think even today, as we record this, there's one very big thing that I'm about to do after this session.
What is it?
I'm going to my therapist.
Oh,
Man. Man. No. I'm going
to.
Man, like my therapist got me to write an open letter to my dad, and it was just a letter that we were going to process between her and I, and it was just a letter for me to express in writing all the things that I feel my dad has done that have hurt me or made me upset, or really just felt like they've taken like my dignity away from him. Away from me. And I did this exercise 2 months ago, but today is the day where we're going to process that letter. So it's not like my dad is not going to be present at that session. It's just going to be between me and the therapist, and she's going to guide how we're going to process that hurt. So it's going to be reliving quite a bit, including this situation that I've talked to you about today, and in an effort to just let go of it, and where I don't have the expectation that my dad is going to come back and tell me sorry, or is going to tell me that I know I hurt you, and tell me that I owe you an apology and I should have done better. It's just to do it and move on with my life on my own without that expectation.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit loaded, but yeah.
No, it was amazing, because you touched upon, I love that you touched upon healing, you touched upon forgiveness, and also just, and I think it's important that, as humans, especially men, to learn how to communicate around these things, because, I speak to a lot of men, some of them, either grown up without their fathers, or some of them having to have like difficult relationship with their parents, but also acknowledging that at the end of the day, we're also all humans. And I think it's so difficult to try and understand people's situations. And I think that is the flaw that we all have as humans, because it's hard to see someone else's perspective. And I think one of the things that makes it easier is when they say that, forgiveness is not for them, it's for yourself. And for me, ever since I learned how to forgive people, it's been the most powerful thing. There's one thing that I want you to just say, like, whoever is going to be watching this, I'm sure there's a man out there who right now is going to be watching this and, is in a dear situation where financially can provide for his family. And he's thinking about taking his life, because we hear about that a lot. What can you say to just encourage someone out there that's, gone through that, been in that space, who wants to give up? What can you do to encourage your fellow man?
I'll answer it this way. There's a video I watched on YouTube of a guy who gave his scenario, where his situation, where he also was running a successful business for a really long time, and then it literally just tanked, and not for any reason that he could control, but just external factors that came into play. And there's something he said when he was describing his situation, where life is like a pendulum. It's not over, it just keeps swinging. So it's either sometimes it swings your way, sometimes it swings away from you. But that's life. It'll keep swinging your way, or it will swing away from you at any given point in time. Now, especially for the times when it's swinging away from you, If it's in a situation where, you know, you're a married man or you're dating someone, or you're engaged to someone, and you've been doing, you know, you've been providing for your family and you're not able to provide, what I'd say is, one, have open conversations with your wife, have your open conversation with your partner, you know, and tell them what the situation is. The society as it is, or the current world setup that we have, you can't carry it all by yourself.
Mm.
In fact, I'd rephrase that and say you shouldn't carry that by yourself.
Mm.
It is not you as a man, you're a human being. You have emotions the same way a woman has emotions. There's nothing like, you know, being expressive of what you're going through, being labeled as a feminine thing. It's a human thing to do. So have candid conversations with your partner. Tell them what the situation is. Also, be as much as how it's not an ideal situation, but be accepting of the situation that you're in. Don't live outside what you're able to afford. Yeah, don't live outside what you're able to afford. Because like here, I know I've noticed people maybe would borrow more money just to keep up their lifestyle. To keep it, to just mask the fact that they're going through a tough time. But most times when you're borrowing the money, you're borrowing the money for a fun time, rather than borrowing money to, let's say, buy food for your family, or buy medicine for anyone who's sick, or pay school fees, or pay some bills. So don't live beyond your means. Have candid conversations with your partner where you get to be very raw and honest about what you're facing, what you're capable of doing, and what you're not capable of doing. Also, together as a team, figure out how you can present the same to the family. Just in preparation of, I know we were able to do a couple of things, but at this point in time, we may not be able to do that. It doesn't mean it's a forever situation, but it's just for now. And then now, I guess you also figure out emotionally and mentally what needs you as a man may have, you know. So your partner can come in and support you, especially if you guys have a good rapport, if you guys get along, if there's room for her to be there for you, allow her in. If she loves you unconditionally, if she's willing to ride this wave with you, then allow her in, rather than project and be angry with her, or be dismissive, or shut down emotionally and mentally, or project like anger and stuff to her way. Do it reverse, you know. And then just realize that there's no shame with in your life. You know, I think that's been the biggest lesson for me, because I honestly thought that my life was done. Not that I wanted to maybe take my life, for example, but I just thought like there's no hope. There's no hope for it to get better. You know, it was just going to get worse. And I think I felt like it was done for. So for anyone who's out there, just, it's not done for. Also, talk to friends. That's why, talk to those guys who you feel you can really, really trust. We were in situations where some friends reached out and came out to say how, you know, they're going through a tough time. They're not able to make rent. They're not able to buy food for their houses. They're not able to pay certain bills that they needed to pay. And just through that, those who they had a good rapport with, they contributed what they could. And it went a long way, even if it gave them a caveat for, let's say, 2 months. You see, 2 months you've bought time.
Yeah.
2 months you've bought some time. If it's things like applying for a job, you could, you as a guy, you could tell your partner what kind of job you're looking for. They could help with job applications. You could tell your friends, network with them, and tell them, I don't have, in fact, that's the thing I'm doing currently. Everywhere I go, the spaces I go to, and I'm like, yeah, I have a passion for policy, I have a passion for advocacy, and I'm currently looking for a job. If you're in a room where people are discussing opportunities and it's something in line with what I've done, or you think I would be that guy, plug my name in, so that wherever they go, they always know, oh yeah, Edgar told me this, Edgar told me this, Edgar, I'll be the first person that will come to their mind, kind of thing. So yeah, that's top of my head, that's what I'd tell whoever it is, or whoever these guys are who are going through a tough time, it's not over. It's just swinging. Life is just it's just swinging. It's not over yet. The people who need you, love you, care for you, want the best for you, and going through this tough time doesn't mean it's done. It's just this is now the time to reach into your friends, reach into your inner circle, because they'll come through. And even if they don't know what to do, you could teach them. You could teach them, or you challenge them to go and try and figure out where they can help you. So if it's they have to reach out to another person, so if I have to reach out to Eve to find out how I can take care of James, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Then you get to learn, and then you get to do, and wellness all around gets to be achieved.
Oh, wow. Gosh, I feel like we've gone over time. I feel like I can be here all day, Edgar, just listening to you. Your stories are always like so amazing and so raw and so just so truthful. And I love that. And I liked that you also mentioned around, seeking therapy. And it's just showing that there's nothing wrong with seeking therapy. There's nothing wrong with talking to someone as a man, and just showing that we're all human at the end of the day. Now, for my surprise question, you also didn't expect this. This is like the closing.
Let's go. I'm ready.
This is the closing. It's not it's more of a surprise question, so they don't know what I'm gonna ask. So
Okay.
you mentioned around policy. What is the one policy, if you were in charge of policy, what is the one thing that you would implement straight away when it comes to mental health?
I love it. The one thing I'll implement is not affordable actually, making sure that all hospitals, clinics offer mental health services across all 47 counties. All 47 counties. So it's offering the service, you build the infrastructure that is needed, you hire the trained personnel that are going to oversee these services, because even the person in a remote area like Turkana County, they deserve mental health services. Doesn't mean they don't go through stuff that affects them. The fact that they continuously go through drugs, that definitely affects their mental health. We keep hearing about these things from the news, but because they're not very close to us, then it's just like, we have that empathy, but then it ends there. It ends at, man, that's so sad, that's so bad. I really hope things can, and then we go through this, we can contribute, but that's it. So I feel like there should be a directive where all clinics, dispensaries, hospitals, at whatever levels, offer mental health services that are government funded. So the government can figure out how to pay the professionals. I feel like that should be their burden for the amount of tax that we pay anyway. So I'm not saying that the professionals offer free services. They deserve to be paid for the training that they've done. But let that be the burden of the government, courtesy of the amount of high tax that we pay in this country. But everyone deserves those services.
Oh, wow. We could talk about mental health all day, but Edgar, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for even just touching lives. I'm sure you've touched someone's life just by speaking up and speaking out. And it's just admirable in terms of the work that you're also doing. So just to close, in terms of if someone wanted to kind of find out more about you, who is Edgar? Because we didn't really go too much into it. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm mostly present on Instagram. So on Instagram, just look for @Jamlek JJ. That is @JAMLEK JJ. So send me a DM anytime. I'll always respond. And then I don't use Facebook that much, so that would be a stretch, but I'd say there's that. And then I'll probably give you my email address, because the address is a bit long, but I'll give you my email address for anyone who maybe doesn't use Instagram or is not on Facebook and stuff. They can reach me there as well. I check my emails anyway. And then we can always take the conversation to WhatsApp as well. So I can also provide my number, and we can have more conversation. I'm always open to that. As much as how I advocate for mental health, there's a lot more that I still like to learn. And so I'd also be asking a lot of questions as well, just from a point of wanting to know more.
Oh, and what about your podcast?
Yeah. And my podcast. So, my friend Bill, Cassandra, and I started a podcast last year, December. It's called The Naked Ego. You can find that on YouTube. You can find it on Apple. You can find it on Google Podcast, Castbox, and any other platform that one uses to listen or watch podcasts. We have several conversations about, different experiences that we as men and women go through. But the rule before any conversation we have is leave your ego at the door. Come stripped, come naked of your ego, and just have a conversation. Say it as it is, whether you know or don't know. That doesn't matter. Whether you've done it right or wrong, that doesn't matter. It is just come and have a conversation, and then be open to other perspectives, other ways, and spread wellness, love, and joy to all.
Oh, thank you so much, Edgar. Thank you. I'm so appreciative, and I'm looking forward to being on the Naked Ego podcast when I do come down. Thank you again, everyone who's watched this. Please leave a comment. I'll put all of Edgar's details in the description box as well for those of you who would like to follow. And we shall continue with our 30 Men, 30 Days. Take care. Bye.